Bianca, did you want to give some first word?
Yeah, sure. Welcome everybody to this space. Thank you so much for hanging out here again with us. This is the week 4 of the Graviton training in the Optimism community. We are really happy to have you all here and being together again. Um, this week we're gonna talk about negotiation strategies, and Nicola, she's the expertise on it. So a little bit more about Nicola. I love her in my heart. She participated on the third Graviton course last year, and before we launched the online training, um, she participated on that course, and then she already felt passionate about the topic on conflict management. And after the course, she decided that she was going to be part of this Graviton movement, I want to say, decentralizing the conflict management, offering alternative resolution, and yeah, being community builder service to empower the Web3. And she now is one of the core members representing Gravity on different communities like Give It. And she became the Gravity Development Advisor in our group. So thank you so much, Nicola, for being here, for presenting this topic to us. I'm sure we're gonna learn so much from you. And I'll leave the stage for you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bianca. And I'm so happy to be here and welcome everyone from around the world. It's my huge pleasure to be here today and talk about the ways that we negotiate through the conflict. And I'm here just really today excited to present you with some very interesting concepts. So as we are joining, you already know the drill, but as I'm sharing the screen, I will just do some repeat. So, welcome to the Graviton training for Optimism. I'm really excited to be part of this program that we tailored specifically for your community. So, just some reminders in case you're here for the first time. Um, The schedule works like this. We have sessions on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Those two types of sessions are specifically designed to be the same type of a session, but in a different time zones, so we can cover as many of you as possible. And there's always a special session every week. And yeah, I'm going to mention about this week's Friday special in a little bit, but as well, just to remember, we are doing this from the 8th of August to September 15th. Wow, we are almost halfway, over. And so, how to participate? Please make sure that you check the content related to each week in our free online course. I hope everyone has access to it. If not, I'll ask my team to share the links and make sure that you have access to the website, you're registered, and maybe you'll have some questions. Please bring it on. So another way to come and join is to come to these live sessions that I find really fun, but I'm also very nervous. So I'll be honest with you guys. So bear with me. I hope I'll do a great job today for you. And at the end of the session, don't forget to claim your POAP. So week 4 is all about BATNA, organizational culture, and a little bit more about negotiation. And just to remind that some relevant links that you may need is to check the forum post where we talked about designing and designed the course in cooperation with your community. Please join our Gravity DAO calendar to stay um, tuned in with the events if you feel inspired to join our events and our calls. And of course, our Discord. And if you're here today, it means that you are on Optimism Discord server, which is great. So some more links to documents and the GitHub issue where we actually were finalizing the agreement about this program. So this is just to repeat what you already, hopefully all of you know. But moving into what are we going to talk about today? So um, this getting to yes in challenging times is a very, very interesting and very, very full of potential method that I want to introduce you today. It's called BB3 method, and you'll learn more as we move through the presentation. It's all created by William Ury, who I will also introduce shortly. We will very briefly touch on a BATNA because it's a very simple method that you can always use in a preparation for any sort of negotiation. And maybe we'll have a little bit time left for practice. So that's for today's lesson. And just to remind us, Friday's special guest will be Livia from TEC, and she'll be talking about Ostrom's framework, which is framework that I believe and I've seen being implemented in many DAO structures across the Web3. And so I believe it's going to be a very interesting and valuable session. And this is going to be the fun, beautiful POAP designed by Bianca for today's week. So make sure to stay till the end to claim your POAP. All right. So moving on. What am I talking today about? Getting to yes in challenging times by William Ury. Um, I believe you all have access to this presentation, and there are some links that can lead you to more resources and content related specifically to the negotiation strategy that he's teaching and he developed. But just yeah, if you click on this link, it's going to take you to an amazing workshop where he talks about his experience. This is a lot of political experience, and really he calls himself a student of a negotiation over 40 years. So I always find this sweet when, we're still in the space and no matter how long, there's always things to learn. So I like that he calls himself a student, and he's a mediator and thinker and advisor and a co-founder of the program on negotiation from by the Harvard Law School. And also, if you're interested, he is world-renowned co-author of the book called Getting to Yes, Negotiating Agreement Without Giving In. So I kindly recommend to all of you, check out the book, get it, read it, get inspired. Well, and if we look at what is it meant, what do we mean by challenging times? Nowadays we all been through the pandemic that we still suffer from the consequences till these days. There's economic recession, climate crisis, and political polarization. And this is really on a global measure. And these types of challenges affect our everyday lives and the way we negotiate with each other and really like deal with conflicts. So it's really extremely challenging times to be alive and also exciting. We are facing some major changes for the society, and so I find it to be pretty exciting to be alive in these days. When I take a when I zoom out and take a bigger perspective on things and the potential that's coming out of all this challenging um, challenging aspect of life nowadays. So there is the evolution where it's basically happening naturally. We can't stop the evolution, and as we see in our space and in the Web3 space, we're moving from the form like in terms of negotiation and decision making, and we're shifting from the vertical, which is more top down and you know power power related and boss tells you something what to do, and we're moving more towards a horizontal structure where things are being more flat, and conflict resolution and negotiation is a crucial aspect of these things. So something I would like for you to just think about is, who do you find yourself negotiating with? If you think about your everyday life and the decisions that you're making, and think about the percentage of the time that you spent negotiating with someone about something, like every day. And I would like to invite you to share in the chat. Let's see if anyone has anything to share. Like, what is the percentage of the time that you find yourself dealing with everyday conflict? Whether we talk about relationships and finding a consent together, getting to a mutual agreement within your family, your relationship, your work environment. How much time do you spend every day talking, back, back and forward with someone trying to find the best solution? I see that someone is typing in the chat. hmm And yeah, I mean, it starts inside, right? There's a lot of internal conflict that we get to explore within ourselves, and that is something that I myself spend a lot of time with. Being a Libra, I find myself oftentimes to be on one side or another, and like there are these parts inside me that are trying to negotiate the best solution for myself. So I totally can relate to this internal conflict situation. And it doesn't have to be in a conflict, really. It can be also just negotiating towards agreement. Maybe we are bringing some new idea about some project, and we actually need to negotiate and talk about these things with our team and find a mutual gain for everyone. Right. So if no one else, I see that Chark has some insights, like conflict. You like conflict, but it's very often misunderstood. Correct. So I hope that maybe some of the things that we'll mention today will help you to have more practical tools in terms of, finding the best strategy to negotiate and to also face face the conflict not only within yourself but outside yourself in the community. Yeah, relationships are the best place to practice negotiation, that's for sure. So that's just for the thought. If I move back to the presentation, there are some there are some key principles that you may want to always keep in mind. And it is something also William Ury is mentioning in his book, Getting to Yes in Challenging Times. Is really important to remember to separate people from the problem, right? So you know, not make the problem about the people, but more make it more about the problem. So be soft on the person, but hard on the problem. Attack the problem, not the people. That's one um, the most important thing to start with focusing on. And then you want to focus on the underlying needs and the interests, right? Of those who are the people behind people's positions. What are their own needs? What are their fears? What are their concerns? And this goes really beyond just someone else's uh, role or a position in a community or in an organization. Oftentimes it just goes to a really like basic needs. And the next, what you want to do is, once you go step by step and you separate the problem from the people, and then you focus on the needs and what are the potential fears and the concerns, then you try to invent a mutual gain, which is more about you know, expanding the pie rather than dividing. That it's not me or you, but it's both of us. And it's called win-win strategy, right? So once you do this, then you can find alternative solutions, which means you know your BATNA. BATNA means best alternative to a negotiated agreement. And I'm going to speak about this a little more in the next slide. I'll explain this practice. But this is really important part of negotiation and preparation for any type of negotiation, whether we speak about family dynamics or even workspace dynamics. And last but not least, reflective listening. This is something that is my favorite thing to do, especially um, in the first stages of dealing with conflict and negotiation. Is we need to make sure that we understand the other party's perspective. We need to make sure that we put ourselves in their shoes, and for that, we need to make sure that we listen. We listen without reactive approach, but from actually like receiving the information. We want to really understand the other party's perspective. And the best way to ensure that you got the information right is once you listen and you hear the whole story of the other party, you just simply say, okay, I heard you say that this and this and this and that. Is that correct? Is this what you said? Is this what you mean? And they can clarify until it's, both of you make sure that you really talk about the same thing. And this is the part, this is the cool tip for me to avoid misunderstanding. Really making sure that the other side heard you really and heard the information that you meant to say. So it's not only that you ask, okay, I heard you say this and that, but you say, okay, can you tell me what you heard me say right now before you actually give me a response, just to make sure that we're both on the same page. Yeah, this is one of, as I said, things to do, because it really prevents so much misunderstanding in a future negotiation, and really finding the resolution together as a team. So, you know, um, really what I'm here to speak about today is about the goal. How can we change the game of the conflict from win-lose contest when one side is confronting the other side, and instead we can move not only to win-win, but to win-win-win, which I will be explaining further as we move along. But this is the really the goal. Like, how can we get ourselves working side by side towards the resolution that serves the community as a whole? Um, yeah. Maybe before I'm gonna go further in the method, the BB3 method, I want to mention BATNA. So, how do you create your own BATNA? And it's actually really, really simple. You just need to do it, in a preparation, and make sure that you know for sure what's the most desired outcome and what's the least acceptable agreement. What I usually do when I speak to people as a mediator, and I try to prepare them for the session where we will have more of the mediation session together. I ask them to ask themselves this question: what is the ideal outcome for you in this situation? What's the most ideal outcome? What's the best outcome you can imagine? And what's the least acceptable thing that you are still ready, you can still accept, you're still okay to do. It's just the least acceptable, but it's gonna really meet your the basic needs and interests. And really, you need to ask the same thing the other side. So the other side, whether they're prepared or not during the session, those are questions that are important to name first. And then you are looking for the zone of possible agreement. So can you meet, where can you meet in the zone of yours ideal outcome and the least acceptable and theirs. And that's the zone where you can actually really create something that benefits both parties. So this is kind of the win-win, right? And what William Ury has developed and worked over the past 3 years, oh, pardon, not 3 years, but 20 years, is the method where it's not only about win-win, but there's the third side. So just to briefly introduce this picture that's illustrating how we're looking at this type of negotiation method is, there's a balcony, there's a third side, and there's the bridge. And what what we found in negotiation in general is, building the bridge is always the core part of the negotiation. And like that's the goal, right? To build the bridge, whether it's between the community or family, whatever kind of dispute, like there is this intention to build a bridge. But really what's the critical part about making the whole negotiation success beyond just your BATNA, beyond whatever are, your best interests and the least acceptable ones. Maybe something that can benefit the most is those two pillars on the side, balcony and the third side, and which I'm going to explain further in the next slides. But what I want you to think about as we will be going through this presentation is think of some type of conflict that you are currently facing, and you can use it as an example. And it can be conflict with your daughter, it can be conflict with your brother, it can be conflict with your like colleague, whatever it is that comes to your mind, whether you're actually currently facing it or maybe something that you can remember in the past. I would love you to have it in your mind right now as we go through this whole method. So, moving on, this is the overall model. So, just briefly introducing these three parts. What does it mean? First, how do we do it, right? So we go to the balcony where we actually move from reactive place to creative place. That's the first win. And then we try to build the bridge. And outside of the bridge, after we have the bridge, we activate the third side. When we're building the bridge, the golden bridge, we're shifting from either this or that to both. And, that's the expansion where actually both parties can feel like, okay, this is win-win. I've I've reached, my basic needs and interests. But then what I personally found very interesting and also very needed in these times where there's so much separation is activate the third side and look at things not, us versus them, but we. So how can this benefit the whole? And whether we talk about benefiting the family or the community, it's always the same aspect in any type of negotiation. So this is just the overall model. And uh, now moving on to the biggest challenge number one. So what does it mean going to the balcony? You know, when we are facing a conflict, and especially something that's dear to our heart, we tend to really get in emotional stages ourselves, and it's hard to really stay calm when you feel all your emotions just being super aroused. And all that you can do is just to react and defend. And this is the fine tuning of like, okay, how can I actually work with myself? So, there's he William Ury said something that I very much resonate, is that the biggest obstacle in a way of getting to yes is not the person on the other side, as difficult as they may seem, because some conflict, and some people are really difficult to deal with. But it's the person who we see in the mirror. And really, we can be our own worst enemies if you don't make sure to take care of ourselves in terms of calming ourselves down, especially if like we all we see is red, then probably it's just gonna keep spinning and spinning and spinning, and finding a mutual gain and pathway to peace is getting more challenging. And you can go to the balcony. You could use this method in a way that not only in preparation, right? So before you're going into any sort of negotiation with someone, you make sure that you put yourself in a calm state of mind. And it can be in many ways. It can be that you go for a walk, and it can be, you journal, or you pray, or you play some music, or you sing, or you dance, whatever it is that makes you feel calm again and can bring you back to your own center. And this is something you can do in a preparation, but also anytime during the negotiation, because sometimes during the negotiation, it's the most challenging time where, we need to learn how to step back instead of reacting. So it's okay to pause, even during the conflict, just to pause, think about the things for a moment, take a deep breath, or ask to postpone the meeting, you know, going to the balcony and making this pause and putting yourself in a quiet state of mind will help you also to see, okay, what is the most important thing for me? What is the goal? Where am I getting at in this? Right? And it can also help you to gain a broader, bigger perspective. And this is really, really important. The most crucial thing, the essential thing to start with before going into negotiation. So, and this is just to complement, you know, what I was mentioning before about the arousal. When we are hyper in a hyper arousal zone, we are emotionally reactive. We tend to be defensive, and also, as you're observing the other person, you can tell they're not in a peace. They are reacting, and especially if there is this defense or impulsive reactions. This is the tricky place when you're trying to get to the optimal arousal zone, right? Where you can actually use the full potential that you can reach. Or on the other end of the spectrum, there is the hypoarousal zone, which means it feels so overwhelming. Oh my God, so many things, and it just numbs my emotions, and we tend to disconnect and just like, not even being interested to face anything or just speak to anyone. So really what we need to take is the time. Take the time and just calm yourself. And I would love if you can drop in the chat what is your favorite way of going to the balcony. I'm just gonna take a sip. I would love to see if someone drops in the chat. What is your favorite way of going to the balcony? How do you calm yourself when you are hyper aroused, when you're really mad? Like, what do you do? And I agree that this is the most important and the most challenging thing to do, because oftentimes it's hard when we are feeling in this place where just like seeing red is really hard to pause and take a step back. But it's possible with the practice and really how it works in a life, and my path towards more awareness around this way of functioning also. Yeah, going to the walk is good one, or physical exercise. Yes, take a deep breath. Yes, sometimes we can't do it. Sometimes, after we react and then you make the best speech you ever regret, then you realize like, oh my God, I actually could take a break and step back. As you as you practice this awareness, I keep reminding yourself this practice, it becomes more and more present. So you eventually get to the point where you're able to catch it in the moment and actually, take a step back. And these days, I used to be very, very emotionally reactive, especially around my period time. And it really helped me a lot and saved a lot of drama in my relationship when I was able to say, hey, you know what? I can't talk about this right now. I'm too triggered. I'm too emotional. I just want to take a break. Please, can we meet in 10 minutes or in 1 hour or next week? Whatever feels aligned. So thanks for sharing. And hi, MS1. Nice to have you. I was quickly checking the chat and going back to the presentation. So this is something that definitely takes practice, but it's the most powerful thing. It's the biggest power that we have in negotiation, the power not to react. So that's something I would love to stick with you from today. Next slide. Challenge number 2. Okay, so once we are able to go to the balcony and we're calm and quiet, what do? We want to build a golden bridge. And what this means is that, oftentimes we try to push people into what we think is a good solution. Like oftentimes we already have the best solution in our mind and we want to just like share it and we want them to agree. But what this does, any type of push or pressure, in a it often creates more defense, more backwards. So what we want to do instead is to attract. And how do we do it? Well, another challenging thing, we need to let go of our own way of thinking for a moment and just try to meet the other person, the other party, the other side where they are, and really imagine their own situation. And then from this place, you can actually help them write a victory speech, which is a really cool thing. William Ury calls it that, when you're writing, like building a golden bridge, put it through the victory speech test. So what do? Is that you imagine that they said yes to your proposal. You don't try to like think of the ways how to get to the yes, but you imagine yourself first like, okay, what if they said yes to my proposal? Like, what would be the win for them? How could they explain it to those that they care about? They, it might be somehow related some other people. So you also take them in consideration. And if they had this victory speech, what would they talk about? What would be their key benefits? What would be the key talking points? And in this way, you simply think about how do I make it easier for them to give the victory speech. And here on the next slide, this is a cool form, and this is what you can use. And this was also part of the practice I was hoping to do today with you. So if you keep in mind the conflict that, I asked you to imagine, maybe you can use this, you can take a piece of paper and pen and write it down. Try to write a victory speech for them. But first, you list the constituency, right? The people that, might be um, involved, people that the other party can care about. So write them down. Make sure that you include all the parties that might be related to this. And then, what would be the key themes of their speech? What would it be? It's like this is a really practice where you exercise the way that you can open your mind and come up with new ideas, and really just imagine yourself in the shoes of the other person and what would be the win for them. And then, of course, you prepare like, okay, what are the most likely the criticisms that you'll get, and prepare for the worst scenario, right? You prepare the worst scenario, all the arguments that they can give you, and you can also prepare the best responses that you can give. But always keep in mind that you want to find a mutual benefit, mutual gain. It's not It's not it's not about you or I. It's about both of us. And this is something that I believe that is still something that we're all need to learn a little more to take in consideration the bigger picture and how can everyone benefit from the resolution or the outcome of the negotiation that we are currently facing. So, because I'm seeing the time, maybe I'll keep moving, but I'd love for you to practice to try this out and just imagine and then maybe apply. And you don't even have to share it. It's not something that we need to make public or like as a group exercise, but it's for you to just keep practicing because I like homework. And I think that's like really trying, trial and fail and practice is the best way to refining the ways that we deal and actually like implementing and integrating the tools that we learn. Well, once we have written the victory speech, sometimes getting to win-win is not enough. Sometimes the problem can be way too complicated, and that's the time where we want to activate the third side. That's the challenge number three. Really step out of the picture and look at the whole and how the negotiation and the outcomes can actually benefit the whole. So you can think about your situation and who else is part of the conflict and can be involved in a good way. Yeah, us as a mediators are oftentimes the third side. We are the third side who, you know, as we as we look at the picture, there is one side and the other side, and then there's insiders, outsiders, people that are involved in the situation, and it can be neighbors and it can be neutrals like or mediators, or it can be even they can be even closer involved like a family and friends or the parties themselves. But the third side means that even if you're on one side or another, that's completely fine, but you stand for the whole. You stand for the whole and you are trying to find something that will not only be mutually accepted and it's going to be mutual gain for those two parties, but it's going to be also having a positive ripple effect on the community, whoever is the community. But there's always some sort of community involved. Right. So sometimes you even need to you can get involved other people into negotiation. Maybe it's a family members. It's it's people who can actually help to resolve the conflict. And by activating the third side as the community and even as the perspective that it is, even if it's just you and me, like what's the whole picture? What's the whole idea and benefit coming out of this? And what this does is it creates access, credibility, and trust. And above all that, you basically can swarm the conflict, which is really interesting concept. I included the link to a short YouTube video explanation, so I do suggest to go in and check it out because it's a very interesting thing. It's something that we can observe in the nature. When birds are swarming or fish, it's actually aspect that it can be applied on a community. So for the sake of today's session, I'm not going to go too much into details, but there's the link and you can go and explore yourself. So, going back to the beginning, it's not to say that this is easy. This can be actually a very challenging process, and the more challenging, the more people is involved. But what makes it seemingly impossible possible is really implementing new ideas and unified way of thinking and different perspectives and taking it from there, which means making sure you go to the balcony and you win the first win, which is the battle that you have within yourself, with yourself. And then once you can be in a creative state where you can use your whole potential, you try to build the golden bridge, right? Where you can both actually feel like winners. And from this place, you move from win-win to we. Okay, so unified way of thinking. We did this. It has, we grown through this. We became better persons. Maybe we learned something new along the process, and it's affecting the whole community. It's affecting our family, our friends, and the workplace, the environment, all of this. And this is something that I find personally very uh, enlightening concept because it's asking us to step outside of our own bubble and take a bigger perspective on things and just calm down the ego a little bit and try to find the best solution for all. And I believe that this type of a leadership which stands for whole, is something that we need in these times. So that is actually going pretty great. I can see that I am at the end of my presentation, and I want to ask you guys, do you have questions? I'm checking the chat quickly. Right. I see Juan, your comments. Yeah, I really love mediation and conflict resolution, being the neutral party, even though oftentimes I find myself, I can be leaning more towards one side or another, but I never let that affect me. What I keep in mind is why I'm there. I'm there to help those two parties to negotiate as the third side there, and I'm there to stand for the whole and remind them, that this is the whole picture, and continuously remind them to keep zooming out and keep taking a breath and communicating everything that needs to be said. And that can be sometimes very long process. Some conflicts, especially political conflicts, as I learned from William Ury, can go over years, but it definitely is worth the try because it's the way how we can really change the way we deal. Because the win-win scenario is kind of old school. Now we're in a space where there's a potential to grow beyond ourselves and consider the whole. I see a session question. Will there be the same session on Thursday? I would listen from the beginning because it is a very interesting topic. Thank you. Yes, it's going to be the same session on the Thursday, and I will come and do this again. I would like to ask if you have any questions, guys, or first of all, maybe you can share in the chat what is that specifically touched you about today's presentation. If there's something that really resonated that you're taking away and you're like, yes, this was really helpful and I'm going to practice this. And also, I want to know if you have any questions related to any specific point in the presentation, and or if you have tried to write the victory speech for someone else that you're currently dealing with in some sort of negotiation or some sort of consensual process. And I'll give you a minute to react and respond in the chat. So nice to see so many people.
Maybe it's not a question, but more of a comment. First, thank you, Nicola. It was a great presentation, and on my experience on being a third side, it's super difficult to be a third side. So, if you're going to participate in a conflict as a third side, please be sure first that you have the agreement of both parties and that you're not perceived as biased. And also, sometimes we think of the third side only as the mediator, but all the people that is involved in the dispute in one way or another can be third sides. So we also have to think of the collateral um, consequences of the actions, and for example, try to bring first someone who can position themselves as neutral, and someone who can like support following up the agreements, and bring some legitimacy for the negotiation. I have the experience of Colombia, that has been a conflict that has been a country in conflict for over 70 years, and um, we have had several peace negotiation processes, and most of them haven't been done inside of the country. For third-siders, we have held negotiations in Cuba. For third-siders, we have had negotiations in Ecuador, and somehow that puts the people in a safe place. And also, when everyone wants to be a third side, then the information gets um, like blurry and confusing, because you have to manage more people, and it's a strategic when you want to be a third side to try to draw borders. So for example, try to leave, for example, the family out of um, a certain negotiation, because the family is people that tends to be emotionally inclined towards someone. So yeah, trying to think if someone is playing a good role in the conflict, or if maybe they are making more noise than what they can strategically support on the negotiation.
Yeah, that is a good point. And also, I think the mastery of this whole practice is really changing the mindset, right? And something that was mentioned in the slides before is like, think of who you if you think of activating the third party and someone who is not directly uh, part of the conflict, but is going to be affected or is somehow involved in some way or another. Is there a way? Is a positive way how you can bring them in? And you know, oftentimes what we need to do first is make sure that we hear each other, really, that we can share our own concerns and feel like we are heard and understood, and create this compassion and understanding between each. It's already gluing, it's already, reminding us that, hey, we are humans, we're all going through this. We want to find some resolution together. We want to, how can we work side by side to resolve this? And sometimes it gets a minute before people express first, their concerns, and so it's a process, and we need to be patient with it. And maybe since we have a little bit more time, and I feel inspired to share a little bit, since we already like touched on the topic, and uh, we mentioned also there was a deep dive in the gravity, since I practice. Um, and use the gravity tools in my own community, um, I definitely agree that the first and the most important thing is, especially when you know that there's a conflict, and you may be directly invited to step in and support, maybe based on a form or based on some sort of a system, contact, reach out situation, whatever you have set up for your community. The first and most important thing to start with is, okay, first I need to go and ask those parties, hey, I'm here to help with this. I'm here to support you find a mutually beneficial solution, resolution. for this, and I would love to help facilitating and mediate the session. Are you okay with it? You ask for consent, and then I usually go, and once the people say yes, yes, please, let's do this. And usually people are eager to learn, how to deal with things, because it's not something that they teach us in the school, how to deal with conflicts and improve our communication skills and learn negotiation techniques. I learned it just because I was in sales for 7 years, and they were like, training me and all that. So I had to learn all these open-ended questions and things that are really important to engage in the process of negotiation. And so, yeah, people are eager to get to the resolution, because no one likes conflict. But conflict is just part of a life, so we need to learn how to deal with it. Well, some people like conflict because they see it as the challenge and the potential to grow and make something constructive and creative, rather than destructive and really, yeah, not a good vibe. So, yeah, this is just how typically I start with negotiating or mediating cases. I ask the parties if they're okay with it, and then I ask them more details. I ask them separately to gain as much information and detail as possible, so that it can help me to like make sure that all these things are addressed and they're not forgotten somewhere, or along the process, so that everything can be addressed and named and cleared. Really a clearing part before even going to the negotiation and the resolution is very, very important. And sometimes it takes time, and some people need really a lot of time to let the steam out and express themselves. And oftentimes it just comes, we experience these types of conflicts and disputes because we're not in a good place with ourselves. There's something we struggle in our lives, whether we don't take good care of ourselves, or we don't eat enough, or we don't sleep enough, or we work too much. Whatever it is, it's affecting the way we function. And that's why I'm so happy that we had Bianca talking about mental health, because I think it's a very important part. And one more important thing that I want to say, it's not about only about us becoming the third parties and helping people to resolve the conflict, but also, helping them. And there's this sort of educational part on things where, uh, as the more skilled ones, we can share the teaching and the learnings with others and help them to improve their communication skills, their negotiation skills, their problem solving skills. And, it's not about us being here and solving conflict or problems for others, but rather empowering them to learn how to do it themselves. So negotiation is a big part of it. And whether you realize it or not, we pretty much negotiate every day in our every lives. Good morning from Rocky Mountains of Colorado. Okay, I guess it's time to share the link for the QR code for the POAP, because we have 5 minutes till the end of this lesson session. So this is this is the POAP where you can claim today. Please make sure you have the app and enjoy another beautiful POAP in your collection. And as you are screening the codes and downloading the POAPs, I just want to leave a space for one last time for people maybe to just drop one word, whatever impression is you have from this session. Um, and this way you can give me a little bit of feedback, and I always love to receive the feedback. So please say something in the chat, whatever you like the most, resonated with you. I'm waiting. I see people are writing something in a chat. That's exciting. Thank you. I love when you interact with me. Yeah, negotiation is a skill to keep developing and practicing. For sure. Yes. I really, really strongly do recommend for everyone to check out the presentation and go to the links and maybe even go to the book, but like go and watch the workshop because the way that William Ury is talking about major political conflicts and the possibilities of like how not the possibility that but the experience of how he's getting to peace and like actually a resolution and peaceful outcome, which is not only to benefit the parties but benefits the whole, is amazing. Importance of self-reflection and taking time to access your feelings before entering negotiations. Yes, 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 agreed. Well, thank you. Thank you for coming today. I hope that you learned something new. You can come again if you want on Thursday. I'll come again. And also make sure to join this Friday session all about Ostrom's framework by Livia from Token Engineering Commons. Yeah.
Thank you, Nicola, for sharing with us your expertise and all your knowledge around the topic. It was great to hear one more time how can we bring to the conscious mind about going to the balcony and building a bridge to this third party. I think it's something that every time we take a moment to reflect on, we can learn a different thing that we didn't pay attention in the past. So I just really like to hear this presentation again in the future and see what did I miss in the past and trying to help improve in the future. So thank you so much for sharing this with us.
Thank you for having me, and thanks everyone for coming and taking part in this journey where Gravity DAO is sharing the knowledge with optimism. And I am excited for Thursday, and I'm also excited for next week and for other sessions, um, for designing the space next week. We're getting to the final stages of this training, and yeah, I'm excited to see the outcomes and yeah, what's going to come out of this. Okay, well,
Mhm. Gonna be great.
thanks everyone. Have a beautiful rest of your day, afternoon, evening, wherever you are.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Nicola. Thanks, Bianca. See
Have
you.
a great day, everybody. See you soon.